How's it going? Dave from Comic Book Investments. So this will be my review of the Batman movie that just came out. So tons of spoilers. If you haven't seen it already and you don't want this spoiled, move on. Or if you don't care, then I'm just gonna talk about everything that was like spoilers. All right. So what did I think overall? And then I'll go into different points. Overall, I thought it was okay. Honestly, I want to like it because it's a Batman movie. So I really, really want to like it. But there's just a lot of things that I'm just like, eh. Like, I put it this way. After I watched Doctor Strange #1 in the movie theaters, I didn't really know too much to expect. And I ended up loving it. So excited when I left, to the point where once it came out on streaming, I instantly watched it again, and I've seen bits and parts since then. And I'm super excited to see Doctor Strange 2. Can't wait, because #1 was so good, I want to see #2. This Batman movie, if they told me that they're releasing Batman 2 in 6 months or a year or whatever, I'd go see it because I go to all superhero movies, but I wouldn't be that excited for it, to be honest. For example, the Christopher Nolan trilogy. I've seen Batman Begins multiple times. The Dark Knight, I love The Dark Knight. I've seen the most, multiple times. I love that movie. Dark Knight Rises, I've seen once in theaters, and that was it. I have zero desire to watch it. I thought it was kind of right? And that's how I feel about this movie. It's just kind of like to me. Okay, so I'll go through some good and some bad. Like some of the good, the cinematography was amazing. I love some of the scenes. Some of the scenes look like it was straight out of a comic book panel, and just really cool use of colors and darks and all sorts of stuff. So I loved that part of it. One of the things that bugged me a lot was, so I didn't really want Robert Pattinson to begin with, but I was like, you know what? I could be proven wrong. Let's just watch the movie as is. And I do not like his portrayal of Batman. He is so emo. Like every time I watch him on screen, like one of the things I'm like, he's narrating, talking about a diary and all this kind of stuff. Like that stuff, like it didn't, I feel like I'm watching a movie from like the early 90s, like The Crow or something, which worked during the time because I like The Crow, but just that like super dreary, grungy, raining all the time type of look. And it just, I don't know. And then on top of that, he's just so emo. Like, I would not be surprised, because I grew up listening to emo music, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's all he listens to. Like the whole time, if anyone knows emo music, Hawthorne Heights, Ohio is for Lovers is a song where the chorus is, cut my wrists and black my eyes. Like that is, it was like the stereotypical, go to Hot Topic, like that's the song. And that song, just the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, that's what it reminds me of. I ended up listening to the song on my way home from the theater. She got my wrists and black my eyes because you killed me. I mean, I like that song. I grew up listening to that stuff. But that's what it seems like to me. It's literally, he's the most emost of emo. He even has like the hair in his eyes. And he's just like, when he's like Bruce Wayne, just walks around like, I'm like, there's like the brooding, and then there's just like the emo. There's a part in Wedding Crashers where there's the guy named Todd, and if you've seen that movie, it's pretty funny, but the Christopher Walken's son's name's Todd, and he's like an artist, and Christopher Walken's standing across, and Todd has hair in his eyes, and he's like taking roses and throwing them in the ocean and screaming at the ocean, and Christopher Walken's like, you tell that mean old ocean, death, you are my lover!
Todd, that's good! Tell that mean ocean!
It's just like, that's what it reminds me of the whole time. He's just so emo, like this, so emo. It's kind of I don't like this portrayal of Batman. Also, another thing that I really didn't like, here's the problem, is they don't make me like Batman in this. Like for example, Rocky. Like you watch the Rocky movies and you're rooting for Rocky. You want him to win, and when he gets knocked down, you're like, come on, get up, right? And you know he's gonna win, but that's what you want, and that's because you're rooting for the character. You fall in love with the character. But this Batman, I didn't really fall in love with him. Like I didn't care. Like I don't care if he wins because like he's a dick to Alfred. Like here, Alfred comes downstairs. He's like, "Hey, you got to meet with some accountants because you're about to lose everything." And he's like, "I don't care about the business and all this kind of stuff." He's like, "Well, what about your father's legacy? That means something. They built this empire. Don't you want to see it? All you have to do is meet with him. You haven't met with him in years." And he's like, "This is their legacy." Talking about him being Batman. This is the legacy now. This is what it's gonna be. This is all that matters. And he's like, Alfred's trying to like tell him like, hey, maybe look at things differently. Maybe you should do this. And he's like, you're not my father. You're basically it's like just telling him off like a typical emo kid, like, get out of here. You're not my dad, and slams the door type of thing. And that's how he is. So Alfred all the time, dismissing him all the time. And then there's a part where Alfred literally takes a bomb for him, a bomb. And I thought Alfred was dead. And I was like, oh my gosh, they went there. Like, because they make it seem like that. That would make sense. Like, he's a dick to Alfred, and then they kill Alfred, and then he's like, holy crap, I need to change who I am. But no, he takes a bomb, you think he's dead, and then literally the next scene, you see him in the hospital, and the nurse is like, he's unconscious right now, and we did everything we can, and it's up to him. He's got to fight. Like one of those things. Okay, he's going to be alive. So later in the movie, he's sitting by the hospital bed, Bruce Wayne is, and Alfred, does that like comes to type of thing that they do in movies. And not like, hey, how you feeling? Hey, this is what happened. Are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. Not concerned whatsoever. Just starts yelling at him. Why didn't you tell me about this? Why didn't you? It's like, oh, good to see you too. Like it's just like, just literally starts yelling at him about something. And it's just like, man, you're such a dick. Like, why do I want to root for you? I don't. And that really bugged me. And another thing was, it's so long. It's way too long. It's one of those movies that has like, you always think it's going to end, but it doesn't end. And it just keeps going and going and going. And the story is good and interesting. If you like movies like The Departed, like a Martin Scorsese film, you're going to like this. But it doesn't feel like really a Batman movie. Like if you took Batman out and just replaced him with average detective, put Bruce Willis, average detective, in there, and you wouldn't know this difference. There's only a couple scenes where he does kind of Batman-y stuff. Like he jumps off of a roof and he puts on his little squirrel suit. Okay. He doesn't really use his gadgets that much. He used like his Batarang once to cut something. He used a little bomb just to blow up a gas canister so there's fog everywhere so the fight scene looks cooler. And he uses his grappling a couple times. I will say that. But yeah, he doesn't really use any gadgets that much. He uses adrenaline, which I thought was cool. I thought when they used the adrenaline shot in his arm, because he's fighting these bad guys, he gets knocked unconscious all the time. And he's like, dizzy. That happens multiple times in the movie. And like he sees Catwoman fighting just a normal bad guy, not like the boss or anything, just a normal bad guy. And she's getting beat up, even though she beat up hundreds of these bad guys. She's about to die. And so he takes out this little adrenaline thing and shoots him with it, which I thought was cool. And then he just beats up that one bad guy a bunch. And I'm like, it would have been so much cooler to use that adrenaline when there's all these bad guys around him and Batman looks like he's about to like, this is it. Batman's about to get destroyed. And then he pulls out a little thing in adrenaline and then he's able to, give himself a little boost so he's able to win. So cool idea, terrible execution. I'm kind of like rambling all over the place because I'm like thinking of these ideas of this they're happening. All right, so I'll try to focus a little better. So some of the things I saw was like standout roles, Riddler and Catwoman. Nope. Catwoman she's a person that exists. It's an okay role. Like nothing negative or nothing positive to say. I would say the one thing negative about her is like I never realized how small Zoe Kravitz is as a human being. She's like 90 pounds. She's like 5'2" and like 90 pounds. She's teeny tiny. And it's really hard to believe when she punches someone once and they get knocked out. as a 90-pound girl versus a massive henchman. So that's stupid, I think. I did a thing about it where they say, oh, she's bisexual or something like that. She's not, because she calls her friend baby. It's her friend. It's literally her friend. If that was her lover, she literally has zero emotion towards her. Like, yeah, she wants to find her friend, but she's like, oh, she's such a sweet girl. I can't believe they got her. I hope she's not dead. Like, that's basically how she talks about it. Like, if that was like your lover, you would be way more concerned. So, no, that whole thing was a stupid news. News is always dumb. The Riddler, I mean, he seemed smart, which I liked. He was okay. Like, he wasn't like anything to write home about. Like, oh my gosh, he was such a great, like when I watched Heath Ledger's Joker, right? Amazing. Like, oh my gosh, or Thanos, such a great villain in Infinity War. Things like that. He's just a above average villain, I would say, for like a superhero film. Commissioner Gordon was great. I liked him. Alfred, I liked Alfred's character. Like, he was more of like, yeah, I just can't believe that Batman was such a dick to him. Like, here he is. He's known Alfred longer than his actual biological father. When did his dad die? 8, 7, 10, somewhere around there. Now he's like 30. And he's known Alfred this whole time. Alfred trained him. Alfred also like helps him with detective work and all this kind of stuff. But he's just such a dick to him. So Alfred was fine. There's like the element of detective work in it. That's what they keep on like pushing, is like he's a detective. Like, he's supposed to be the world's best detective. He's not. He's terrible. He's always getting things wrong. He's not as smart as everyone else. Like, a couple things he gets right, but yeah. And so I'm like, he's never one step. That's what I like about Batman. He's always one step ahead of the criminals. He's not. He's like 2 steps behind. So, I mean, I get it. He's like learning, and this is like year 1. But if you want to watch it like year 1, watch The Long Halloween. That was a better Batman film than this. It's just the constant emo-ness. And Robert Pattinson's face looks like Batman, but how he acts does not act like Batman. To me, it just doesn't feel like he's so emo. And when he's Bruce Wayne, he's just even more emo. And their house that they live in is this. I'm like, no, I even looked at my friend. I'm like, who lives in a house like that? When they showed it, I'm like, no one lives in a house like that. Like, his parents weren't Batman. He is. But he's living in a house that's just like so gothic. And I'm like, but his parents are rich people. They would live in a rich, normal person's house. They don't live in this, literally look like your abandoned church, gothic, weird architecture house. They wouldn't. Also, another thing with Robert Pattinson is he has a higher pitched voice, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. So it's more of like an effeminate voice. Still, nothing wrong with that. Works great for Twilight, trying to get all those young girls. But it doesn't work for Batman. Like, he does his Batman voice, but you don't really see him as like a threat as much because he has like a higher pitched voice. That's why I think it worked better for the other actors that played him that had like a deeper voice. Just in general, because it makes you seem more imposing. And then also, he has his shirt off and he's like kind of ripped, but like he's more wiry. Not like I like my Batman to look like Frank Miller's Dark Knight or Jim Lee when he draws Batman, just like big, hulking, like he's just thicker. And even when you're at 30, it doesn't matter how much weightlifting you're going to do, you're still going to look just more wiry. Like you can't just look thicker. Like, that's like genetics. You can work out all you want and you'll have muscles, but you'll still look wiry, just like ripped kind of thing. You won't look hulking huge. So that I don't really like. And like his voice, like I said, it's kind of more weaker of a voice. So I think Robert Pattinson was I saw the movie. I think he's a terrible choice. Physically, his jawline looks like Batman when he has the thing on, but outside of that, that's about all he has going for him as far as Batman. Another thing was like, there wasn't, even my friend said, he's like, there's barely any action. There isn't. I mean, there's a lot of detective work, but again, he's not that good of a detective. And the fight scenes they did have no weight to them, because in the very beginning, the very first fight scene, he has to fight these thugs. And everything fighting is just punching. He's punching. He has a couple kicks. Most of it's just punching. And I'm like, that's fine, but he uses none of his gadgets. So they established in the very beginning, someone has a gun and shoots him and he's fine. Bullets bounce off him. Okay, so we got to up that scale from one guy with a gun. And then another really cool scene, which was in the trailer, was a part where he's in this hallway and these thugs have like machine guns and they're shooting him, but the only light that you see is from basically the fire coming out of the gun. So, it kind of gives like the strobe light effect and like you only see parts of it. Very cool. I love that scene. But here he is fighting people, like probably 10 people, and they have machine guns and they're shooting him. And you can clearly see like they shoot him in the head, they shoot him in the chest, they shoot him all over, and he's beating him up. Doesn't even affect him, right? Because he has bulletproof armor everywhere. So you established, first you have one gun, a guy with a gun, doesn't hurt him with bullets. Then you establish, okay, let's up that. Let's give 10 people machine guns. Okay. Goes right through that, beating people up, just punching. That's all he does. So then the end final fight scene, you think would be like, oh, they got to up the ante. No, it's like 10 guys with more single shot rifles, because they're trying to like shoot people from afar. And so where's the stake in that? You've already approved that with assault rifle machine guns, that does nothing. Now you just have a like single shot. And so it's like you take all the weight out of like, could Batman get out of this? I don't know. It's like, well, this is easy. You're in a bigger space. It's just people with weaker weapons than he already faced. So it's like, whatever. I mean, he gets shot once with a shotgun and that kind of like stuns him. But that was it. So I don't know. It's just, I don't know. And then there's like that scene. And then there's a part where he has to jump across to cut this like electrical wire. He could have thrown a batarang at it, but no, he has to jump. And you think he's going to die. And because they do this slow motion, because he cuts an electrical wire while he's hanging on it. So you're like, oh, he got electrocuted. And he's falling. He's kind of like frozen, like he's dead. And it's slow motion. And he drops in the water. And you're like, oh, okay. So Batman's not going to appear. And then you're going to see him way later. That's how he escapes from, people being around. Nope, he instantly gets right out of the water. And you're like, what's the point of that? Like, you took out all the weight. Like, oh, he's going to die. Nope, not even close. Not even going to suspend your disbelief for just a second. So I don't know. There's like that kind of stuff. It's very slow moving. I would say that sometimes I got bored during the film. Checked my watch, like, how much longer do I have of this? It's just not very Batman-y, and I get it. It's like year one, starting out type of thing. So he's not that smart. He doesn't have that much gadgets, all that kind of stuff. It was just like, it was okay. Like, honestly, I would judge it like this. Did I fall asleep? No. Okay, so it kept me awake. Did I check my watch? Yeah, I did. To see how much longer I had of this. So that's not a good sign. Another good sign. If this came out on streaming in like 3 months, 6 months, whatever it comes out, would I watch it again? No. Will I ever watch this in like 5 years, actively seeking out instead of like maybe someone's house and they have it on? No. The only thing I'll do is I'll watch the highlights on YouTube of like different action scenes. So it's, as far as a movie goes, it's above average movie. As far as a superhero comic book movie goes, it's about an average superhero comic book movie. So usually superhero comic book movies are better. And I love the dark stuff. It's definitely different from Marvel stuff that's more light and fun and better of a movie. But I would say, but The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger's Joker is probably, that and Watchmen are probably my favorite comic book movies. I think they are the best and Infinity War. All those three. Probably the Joker is probably the best villain. But yeah, I don't know. I want it to be good, and so I'm disappointed that it wasn't better. I don't know. Let me know what you think.